spaced for a second.
Yeah. The next page, 39.2, basically is a snapshot of the number of people as of the January billing that we had on the various plans. Most of our active employees are overwhelmingly on the HMO, not the PPO, which is good because that's the PPO is a more expensive plan, both for the employee and the employer. And they're about evenly split between individual and family. There's a total of 189 on individual plans, 183 on family, for a total of 372. On the other hand, the retirees have a slightly higher percentage on the PPO plan. These are people basically either who move out of the area and feel more comfortable with the PPO plan, if they say move to Florida or so, than staying on the HMO plan in terms of their choice of providers, or just simply have unique medical problems where they feel more comfortable on a PPO plan. Whenever possible, we try to ask them to look at the HMO plan to see if they could convert over and still get the same level of service. When people turn 65, the town and the town HR office handles this, ask them to slide over to the Medicare plan and drop them from either the HMO or the PPO. The average cost for an active employee at the bottom of that column for total active is roughly $9,647. The average cost for retirees while they're on either the HMO or PPO plan is $10,500 because there's higher proportion on a PPO but fewer on a family plan. When they slide over to the Medicare with the first seniority supplement, it goes down dramatically to $2,900. So it's a weighted average for all retirees of $5,460. When we add new staff, we're basically adding roughly a $10,000 medical insurance benefit. When I projected the medical insurance account, and this is slightly different than an answer I gave back in January, I went back and double checked, I did build in a contingency of $50,000 to allow for 5 additional staff, which is part of the director of guidance and the middle school teacher and the high school teacher that we were adding. There was no need to adjust medical insurance for the full day K because all those teachers already qualify for medical insurance at a 0.7 FTE. So there's no, John?
One question is, from January 07 to 08, did we see a change in the number or fraction of employees who take health insurance through us as opposed to through their spouse?
Yeah, the numbers went up, and we assume that that's one contributing factor. Every time we have an open enrollment, the numbers seem to go up, or else teachers, young teachers that we hire on individual plans go over to the family plans, either because they've gotten married or because their spouse has a different situation with their employment. And then we also see that with the new enrollment in September, so the new teachers coming on board, replacing teachers who either retire or have resigned. And when they retire, we're still covering them under the retiree until they hit 65 and go to the Medicare. And this has always been one of the difficulties in making projections. I try to look at the net effect from the previous September and the previous open enrollment and try to build that into my projections.
I guess I didn't get my question.
I think the answer to your question is yes, but we can't quantify it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We assume that that's a contributing factor because of the turnover that we do see.
I'm just thinking because it's 80-20 instead of 90-10 for the contribution.
Well, and the economy is such that if the spouse loses their job or loses their benefits on the job that they still have, or suddenly you're contracted out,
yep. Okay.
You look for benefits with the employee of the school system. With these successful negotiations, which were really quite an effort on the part of the school committee, we feel we are turning the corner on this stuff. And I applaud all of you for your time and energy that you put into this. Revenue offset, we see how actually the amount of revenue being applied against the school budget is going down from $1,875,000 to $1,672,000. That's a decrease of $200,000. And this is the issue that I kind of stumbled over back in January when we made the first budget presentation to you. Because if we're losing $200,000 worth of revenue that we're drawing out of revolving accounts, we have to make up that $200,000 out of the appropriation. Because somewhere in the budget we have $200,000 worth of expenses in a level of service charged against that. And that's that remaining 0.6% or so. I remember Mike Widmer at that presentation could not figure out what the gap was between the 6.9 and 7.5. Well, it's this $200,000 loss of revenue. It's very similar on a different scale with what the Warrant Committee is wrestling with the free cash situation. The expenditure of over $4 million worth of free cash supporting the FY08 budget now going down to what it is for FY9. There's only $2.9 million available. It means that there's a loss of revenue, which is hurting us all. The page that I think is of interest to most people is 40.3, which shows the status of the revolving accounts from the closing balance in fiscal 06 to what our actual revenue in 07 and expenditures and closing balance in 07. And you can see that we actually expended close to approximately $243,000 more in 07 than we took in, and this was deliberate because we made a commitment to reduce the closing balance. Those fund balances were getting a little bit too high. So we reduced the fund balance from $850,000 down to $607,000. When we built the 08 budget that we're expending now, we had planned to expend $1,795,000 against the current budget, but only projected revenues of $1,004,000. So we expect that fund balance by the end of June to again drop down to $268,000, a decrease of over $300,000. We've been doing this for 3 years now. We cannot obviously continue this trend because we're running out of fund balance. So for fiscal 09, we are committing $1.6 million against the budget, but we are only anticipating revenue of $1,481,000. So we are deliberately driving the projected fund balance down to $137,000. And at that point, we assume it will level off, and beyond fiscal 09, the revenue will be the expenditure against future budgets. I'll take any questions from the school committee or any members of the audience on any of this, any of the fringe benefits revolving accounts. I'm done.
You know, Jerry, I just want to say thank you for your efforts to draw down the revolving accounts, because we've got them to a good place now, and I appreciate that you working so hard to make that happen in a very smooth manner.
Now we need to build them up again.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they were higher now that we're facing what we're facing.
Right.
but-
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Excellent. Move approval?
Yeah, quick.
Okay, next item is the approval.
Jerry has a busy night, just like he did last week. The next one is the approval of educational specs for Wellington School, Exhibit A1 and A2. A1 is just some information on the meeting with MSBA this Thursday, and A2 is the document. I have a few extra copies of it. I don't know if it's on the side or not, but I do have some extra copies of it here that I can give out. And I'd ask Jerry to walk us through that. That is information that I think is very, very important, and we will actually need a vote from the committee tonight, and we can take that to the MSBA on Thursday. Jerry.
When the building committee first was working with the architect to do the schematic design, the original set of educational specs that the school committee had approved called for 6 classrooms per grade, what is known as a 6-track school at the Wellington, which would accommodate 600 regular day students and 85 special education students in both lab classrooms and pre-K classrooms, because we saw that the growth of the pre-K program at the Winbrook was bursting at the seams, and that some of the pre-K programs that have to come over to Winbrook. 2 years ago, NESDEC felt that our enrollments would level off. That graph is shown with the projections they did at the time. Our K-4 enrollment was 2 years ago was at 1,333 students, and they said we'll stay at about that 1,330 students for a foreseeable future. Well, as we all know, that didn't happen. We had an incredible influx of elementary students. We now are up to 1,450, which is 113 students higher than what NESDEC had projected 2 years previously. So we need to go back and re-examine the reduced size that the school committee did 2 years ago. Based on the more optimistic projections, the school committee had reduced the size of the ed specs for the Wellington school to a school with 5 tracks, 5 grades, classes per grade, which would accommodate 500 regular day students and 60 special needs students. We reduced a couple of lab classroom potential, which is not a direction we want to go in. So with the latest NESDEC enrollments, based on the growth in the past 2 years, we've re-examined this, and I would ask the school committee to go back to the original ed specs on which the schematic design was based, to again have a 6-track school, restore the 5 additional classrooms, restore the 2 lab classrooms, which are a very valuable program to us, and restore a second music room. And the ed specs for that are attached here, broken out room by room. And on the second page of my memo, I believe there's a motion, if you wish to do this, to vote to revise the ed specs, et cetera, et cetera.
Can I just, it's my recollection that removing those 2 lab classrooms, we did that with the idea that the preschool was moving out of Winbrook, and we could move some of the lab program over to Winbrook.
Well, with the preschool having grown in the past 2 years, we're not sure if we can move the full preschool program out of Winbrook or have to split it between Winbrook and Wellington. And even if we move the full preschool program over, there wouldn't be enough pre-K classrooms at the new Wellington without adding this 2 sped classrooms. Whether you call them pre-K or lab, we need the 2 additional special education rooms at the Wellington to accommodate both the growth in the pre-K program and the request to have more lab classrooms, which benefit us greatly, both student-wise and financially.
Actually, we're meeting with the lab representative, executive director tomorrow at Wellington to look at Wellington for what I hope would be just 1 year, potential use of Wellington for 1 year for a classroom at the early childhood level that would be that would involve other districts other than ourselves. I told him to wear his jacket when he comes over. Lab coat. It's lab coat, yeah. But anyway, we have ongoing conversations about this. Yeah, the needs have continued to increase.
And we have a system-wide problem. I mean, we added an elementary teacher at the Butler School that we didn't have a classroom for this year. So that extra teacher is actually floating among the 3 existing classrooms. We do have a problem with the additional pre-K room at the Winbrook. So we're trying to address, this may be our last opportunity for quite a while to do any elementary school space. And the experience of this town in the past with the Chenery and with other buildings is they tend to fill up as soon as you open the doors, and we don't want to make that mistake again. And this is a decision for the school committee to make, because you control the ed specs, not the building committee. We've talked to Mark Haley and Pat Bush, the chair and vice chair of the building committee, and they are totally in support of revising these ed specs back to the original.
Great.
Rob Wallen was here for the building committee.
Any comments from the table, Scott?
I just have a question. This is kind of for the record because I was involved with the first feasibility study for the Wellington, as was Elizabeth 8 years ago. And at the time, we thought that the costs were going to be sort of manageable. We thought that would be under a 60% reimbursement scenario, and this is for the explosion of costs. While I fully support and will vote in favor of any motion, to expand this to a 6-track school and add more lab classrooms, I'm curious as to what we think the delta will be in terms of overall construction costs. I mean, some of the soft costs would stay the same, others will go up.
Yes.
What the delta will be in terms of actual costs, and given a likely 40% reimbursement scenario, therefore, how much more, in rough terms, the debt exclusion would have to be for the citizens of Belmont by making this decision. I mean, it's, given that the NASDAQ projections do not include any additional enrollments based on developments at McLean, whether it's moving into the existing townhouses or the new assisted living, which would free up, oversized houses for school-age children. Then there's a question as to whether there would ever be any other residential development in Boston, in Belmont, whether it's something like a 40R in that neighborhood or over at Belmont Uplands. I do think that we've got to add this capacity while the adding is good, but I just want to recognize for the record that this is going to increase the level of the debt exclusion and the level of construction costs. I think it'll be money well spent, but we need to be cognizant that we are, basically by this vote, adding probably at least another 15% of the cost of the building overall.
I don't
I
think
think
it's
it's
15.
a lot less than that.
That's
Yeah.
less than 15%?
The estimates from Turner and Jonathan Levy just seemed like the delta between a 5-track versus 6-track was way smaller than I had expected.
Yeah, same,
Those
we
are extra
did
music
that
room.
when we dropped the specs originally from 6 to 5.
Right.
Because all your core facilities are the same.
Sure.
The size of the gym, size of the cafeteria, all your offices, receptions, guidance, et cetera.
Mhm.
We basically took 8 classrooms off the 2 ends of the building.
Mhm.
Dropped it in by 1 classroom on this end, 2 across on each floor, first and second, and then 1 on this end. And I was surprised at how that delta was not that big. We can go back and I can dig that delta out of my notes, if I can find it, and report back to you at the next meeting, or get that information to the school committee.
Okay, but it's less than a pro rata, because so much of the core of the building remains the same. You do that, add that on a music room, but otherwise it's just the 8 classrooms, the 6 for the tracks plus the lab classrooms.
That's correct.
Okay, so, but in any event, I mean, even a 7% increase, given the projected cost of the building, will make a difference to Belmont taxpayers. So it's important that we
Sure.
at least acknowledge that we will be raising the cost of buildings to our taxpayers, but we think we're doing it for a very good reason.
Also, the cost estimates were done with the bigger building. All the publicly disclosed estimates were the
Sure.
six-story school. Just
Right.
so it's not like we're going over what we said we would go over.
Understood, but had we not, if we didn't vote to increase the size, we could have said to the community that the cost would be less than we had originally projected.
Right.
And of course, there could be some increase in inflation costs for construction, because those have been going up at a pretty aggressive rate on an annualized basis.
$10,000 a month or something.
Right,
Or a
exactly,
week.
yeah.
I want to make it clear, this is, for the record, this is not Newton North.
Right, they just built it in the north.
Wait a second. Anything else from the table?
Well, I want to say that I think given this chart you made for us of the NASDAQ projections and the amount of influx of students we've seen over the last few years, that this is a wise decision for us to make, and I support this recommendation.
I mean, you have a development going forward in your neighborhood with what's the?
The Our Lady of Mercy
The Our
site
Lady of Mercy
Not
development.
anymore.
It's
could
gonna bring-
potentially become the Oakley Neighborhood Overlay District.
Right.
That's correct. And that's right in the Wellington district.
That is in the Wellington District, yes.
And we've already determined that any changes based on McLean development would be part of the Wellington catchment as well. And if for something were to be done at the Belmont Uplands, it's anybody's guess. It wouldn't necessarily be part of Wellington.
No, those kids are gonna have to be bused anyhow, so once they're on the bus, they can go to any one of 3 different schools.
Right.
The Butler would be the only one that would be a much longer ride.
I was just going to say that this is purely anecdotal, and I'm waiting someday for the statistical data that actually supports this, that as I look at my oldest who's in 9th grade and my youngest who's in 1st grade, the size of the families that are peers of my 9th grader and the size of the families that are peers of my 1st grader are different. That I think in Belmont, families are beginning to have more children. And that may be part of what we're seeing, and a trend that we could expect to see. Again, purely anecdotal, but I definitely see it with that age range of my kids.
Okay, anything else at the table? Audience?
Yeah, and again, the other thing I want to mention, not only McLean, but, and the building, the low-income housing that's going to be built, Butler's already, actually, if we get any bigger, you're going to be building an addition on, which you have to charge the taxpayers for eventually, because we're busting the seams, you're going to have to redistrict. I think you might want to consider making Wellington even bigger than this. if you look at the growth that this NESDEC group came up with, you have anything like this in the next 3 years.
We're running into site constraints. If we make it even bigger than what we're proposing.
So what do you do when you run out of space?
Trailers, which are not reimbursing, which the town pays for, totally.
So if you put those on recreational fields, that's okay? But if you build a building on it that can't be moved, that's a problem, right? I'm just curious.
Well, I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm comfortable with the capacity that the revised ed specs would have. And the feedback I've received from members of the building committee, especially Pat Rush, is that they're comfortable also with the, going back to the original specs on which the schematic design was based.
And whatever the cost is, it's a percentage that the state is contributing, right?
Yeah, we
Of the
expect,
total cost?
we expect it to be around 40%.
Okay. So even if it goes up 50%, it's reduced by 40%
That's
of the
correct.
state?
Right.
Okay, thank
And John was right, the cost estimates that came out of the schematic design
you. Right, we're lower than that.
were higher by reducing the ed specs. We were attempting to lower the cost, but we're back to the numbers that were projected
They
in the
were
schematic
originally-
design.
Yep.
Back to square one.
Okay, any more comments on this before we vote? Would anyone else like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move to vote to revise the education specifications for the new Roger Wellington Elementary School, previously revised on May 9, 2006, by accepting the educational specifications on which the schematic design was based for a school of approximately 101,200 square feet to accommodate 600 regular day students at ideal class sizes, plus 85 special education students.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay,
Thank you very much.
so that will go with us on Thursday.
Good luck with your meeting, yeah, I understand.
Bring roses and candy. Oh, if I may, just an issue of timing and logistics. I don't think anyone at the table knows the answer to this, but my understanding is once the school building authority gives its approval for a project, doesn't the town have a pretty tight time window in which to secure the local funding, like 120 calendar days?
That's exactly right.
Okay, all right, so depending on when they'll make the determination is between, them and their maker, but whenever that determination comes, the town will have effectively 4 months in which to secure financing, which would include the exclusion election, and there's a
And
town meeting vote,
both.
both, okay, they have to do both. So, but you can do them in either order, so the town meeting could,
Order doesn't matter, as long as they're
Right.
both within
right,
120.
the town meeting could okay it subject to a vote of the, approval by the voters. But it is gonna be something which may fall, will certainly fall after the April municipal election, and it may fall before the November elections, depending on what the MSBA tells us, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I
For all we
understood
know,
that.
it could even be beyond that,
Uh-huh.
at the rate that they go. Okay, next item is second quarter FY08 budget report.
Jerry has prepared the second quarter FY 2008 budget report, and it's essentially good news. Jerry?
Yeah, we're very seldom, I feel uncomfortable saying this, because I'm usually saying we're in deficit at this point. But we have our head above water, we seem to be breaking even, we can tell our principals and directors to spend the non-salary accounts as they originally budgeted for. We have a slight salary surplus. We are covering the 2 additional elementary teachers, and we're covering that by staff turnover. I mean, every year since I've been here, we've hired an average of 50 new teachers. Now, when I first arrived 7 years ago, a high proportion of those 50 teachers were retirees. And whenever we know about retirees, we replace them in the budget if we get the knowledge in time, and we continue to do that. However, the number of retirees has dropped dramatically. I think the retirees for this year was only about 4 or 5. But there's a lot of other staff turnover with younger teachers on the salary scale that we cannot budget for, because that's much more unpredictable. And when somebody who has been here for 4 or 5 years and is maybe on master's step 7 suddenly leaves to take another job or move out of state or has a change in their family status, and we hire a new teacher at Master Step 3, there's a $2,000 to $3,000, maybe $5,000 savings there. Well, when you have enough of them going like that, that starts adding up to real money, as famous Senator Irvin Dirksen would say, but only people of my generation even recognize that reference anymore. And that's fortunately what's allowed us to cover the 2 additional elementary teachers that we've had to hire this year. Now, I want to make it clear that that will not carry forward for next year, because we've now taken those salaries that the people who have left out of the budget, and we put the replacements in. So we do have to increase the budget for next year by the 2 elementary teachers. This, I know, is a question that has come up with the warrant committee in terms of what defines level service. And my contention is, to define level service, you have to include the 2 teachers that we currently have on staff and are paying. Our special education deficit, our annual special education deficit, is not as bad as it's been in the past. We are thankful for the $815,000 in circuit breaker funds we are receiving. We had anticipated $806,000 because that now is reaching a ceiling and maxing out. But the out-of-district tuitions and the contracted services and sped transportation is not as severe as it's been at other times during the year. Utilities is actually showing for now a surplus, basically because of our natural gas accounts. This is still early in the winter. We do not yet have January bills built into this projection. When I come back to you in April with the 3rd quarter report, which will have a much more complete and accurate projection of end-of-year balances on utilities. But for now, they appear to be in good shape, driven by the natural gas surplus. Medical insurance and other fringe benefits, amazingly, is showing a slight surplus, as I have detailed, and the other non-salary accounts do have a deficit. And if you look at the attached spreadsheet, you see that $7,000 of that deficit is the transportation for the student that we had not anticipated going to the Aggie school. And we have legal fees. We've had some very serious legal bills coming in from a special education hearing that we have to pay. So we know we're going to blow that account considerably, and that'll be in the hole by over $50,000. So if we allow the directors and principals to spend their non-salary budgets as they intended, the overall non-salary accounts will be down by $67,000, but still giving us a positive projected bottom line of $56,000. With that, I'll simply take any questions. At any time, if the school committee wanted more detail on this, we can give them the actual munis printouts, account by account, program by program. But we try to summarize it, give you the executive summary of it. I'm good. You don't get paid enough to have to pour through those documents.
We don't get paid enough.
You don't get paid enough. Exactly, that's my point.
Exactly.
That's right.
Just satisfaction. Any questions, Salem?
No, thank you.
This is just information. We don't have to vote to approve.
No, it's just information.
It is accepted.
Okay, thank you, Chair. With that, we'll move on to reports of subcommittees and liaisons.
Why do you always look at me first? I usually flap my gums. Just another reminder that Belmont Unplugged begins the 1st of March, an entire month of activities. And a calendar has actually been distributed, or rather generated for the entire month of activities, and I believe it's going to be going home to all 4 elementaries as well as the middle school, for which we're appreciative to the central office administration.
Can you look at the unplugged calendar online?
Philosophically, no.
That seems like an oxymoron.
In actuality, it's a good question. Probably. You'd have to check the
None of it's
website.
really unplugged.
Only up until the end of this month, and then after that, it's Black Friday.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, at a meeting of the Superintendent's Health Advisory Council, someone
Yes,
who
it was.
visits there, who's part of the Needham municipality, says that they do an email-free day as part of their Unplugged. You can imagine a day without email. Yeah. Well, yeah, good luck with that one. But, and just another reminder to the administration that the Youth Commission is very appreciative for the Tuesday night the 11th of March, no homework, no meetings night, which we have helped to set aside as a time when, to the greatest extent possible, families will be encouraged to spend time with one another without the burden of homework or, meetings that are within the control of the school department anyway. That's very much appreciated. And there's a kickoff dinner dance for Belmont Unplugged, the first Saturday night in March the 1st, here at the Chenery. $10 a family for all the pasta and meatballs will allow you to eat. And at the very end of the month, on the 29th, there's a yo-yo show at the Belmont High School Fieldhouse, sponsored by the Youth Commission, where not only will there be people that who demonstrate, who do a yo-yo show, but they'll be, I think, also doing some lessons afterwards for those that want them, as to how to do around the world and, walk the dog.
The event is free.
Exactly, the event is free.
But then, for people who want to pay $5, afterwards, we'll get instruction and a yo-yo.
What she said. That's right. Okay, what she said. Okay.
No relation to you.
Okay. Or you or mama, either one. That's right.
Can I just add one quick thing? Sorry.
Go ahead. You're senator.
The Youth Commission is very appreciative of having this calendar and a letter about Belmont posted on the school website. So there's a link to that, which is something new. So thank you for
It looks like
What do you think, Natasha?
I was going to give an EDCO
Please.
report. We haven't had an EDCO board meeting for a while, and we'll be having one on March 6th. We just got that information today, with two interesting topics on the agenda. One is going to be a continued conversation about the potential for the collaborative to do some purchasing of technology. And another conversation will be about, there'll be an informational presentation on overrides, since several member communities are contemplating or preparing for overrides. And I also asked for information on the annual forum, legislative forum. So it will be Friday, April 4th, from 8:45 to 11 at the Weston Town Hall. And this year's topic is going to be accountability measures for the 21st century schools. Speakers will include Dr. Yang Zhao, Director of the Center of Teaching and Technology, College of Education at Michigan State University, Dr. John Doria, Superintendent of Canton Public Schools, Dr. Daniel Koritz, Harvard Grad School of Education, and Dr. Paul
Rebel.
Chair of the Board of Education. Never been quite sure about how to pronounce that.
Yeah, pronounces a rebel.
Yeah, like Johnny Yuma. Remember Johnny Yuma was a rebel?
No.
Oh.
And they will be sending out formal invitations to that event soon.
Okay, thanks. Diana.
Capital Budget Committee met last Thursday, went through fire, police, part of IT. Next meeting is March 13th, and I think you're on the agenda for that, as well as lead again with some of the technology stuff. So there was some discussion about the spending for security around the schools, and I think we've tabled that discussion a little bit because some of the details weren't clear to the committee at the time, but will be discussed on the 13th.
Okay. Tomorrow's warrant committee meeting, the major topic will be how to close the gap in the budget. Whether it's, I don't know, moving more from free cash or cutting things or stuff like that.
Closing the 3.1 million or 3.7 million, depending on how you look at it, gap in the budget.
Yeah, I'll send out the minutes of that, and as I did the last time. Okay. Somebody raise their hand here, or are we done? Consent agenda, there is none. Anything else? Move to where? Adjourn?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Snow is. Is there school tomorrow?
I hope so.
I think rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.